All right, peace, brothers and sisters. Apparently, my screen wasn't working for the video, so hopefully it'll work this way. So I'll get started just one moment. All right, peace, brothers and sisters. Apparently, my screen wasn't working. Just want to make sure everything is working okay. So give me a moment here. Make sure. Let's see. Okay. All right. I'll try this again, and hopefully this will work this time. My apologies. Brother was trying to call me. I didn't even realize it. And this tech is something else. But let's see here. Try to make sure they can see the screen. They have to see the pictures. They have to see all that. Otherwise, that's interesting because it was on my end showing perfectly. Let's see. Give me a moment here. We'll get started. Make sure it's showing up. All right. So again, welcome. Again, let's see here. So now, hopefully you can see my screen. Okay, and this is a continuation. I'm gonna just go over this again. Again, my apologies if you sat through it and didn't hear it, but this is a continuation of what I was dealing with when I asked the question, did Israel or the Israelites return into the land in 1948? And the answer is unequivocally no, they did not. Those are not the people in the land today. And you know that because, how do you know it? You know it because, number one, when they were returning to the land, we understand that they were going, before that, they were going to the promised land. And it's not just one tribe, it's 12. And it won't happen until the Lord returns. Okay, we know that. And furthermore, his people are scattered into slavery. And I touched upon how that his people are in captivity. They got into captivity by way of slave ships. Okay, was sold as slaves. And because Deuteronomy 28:68 says, and no man shall buy you, people thought, and they got a number of messages in which I dealt with yesterday about how no man shall buy you doesn't mean like you won't be sold as a slave. It means nobody's going to redeem you out of it. And we are still in that situation. You haven't returned home. Okay, you're still a servant, in another land. Okay, and that's the situation, and that won't change until the Lord intervenes. So now the question then becomes, who are the people that are claiming to be the people or Israelites today? Those are not the people in the land today. Okay, and I want to go over some reasons of how you know that's the case. So now I want to deal with, again, I'll just go over this again. I want to deal with particularly the Exodus. Okay, so when did the Exodus? I want to talk about when the Exodus occurred and who the pharaohs potentially were at that time. Now, someone said, "Why is it important?" Well, it's important because we're going to show you pictures of these pharaohs. So it says, this is 1 Kings 6:1. So when did the Exodus occur? And it came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel will come out of the land of Egypt, in the fourth year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziph, which is the second month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. So now if we know when Solomon reigned, we can determine when the Exodus was. We can narrow it down very well. Go back. So now the Encyclopedia Britannica gives the date of Solomon's enthronement as 974. And thus the fourth year of his reign would have been in the year 970. Adding 480 years prior to that would therefore place the Exodus in the year 1450 BC, a date which corresponds almost exactly with the date 1446. So we have a very close estimate of when this time was, anywhere between 446 BC and 1450 BC. Okay. So now these are the two pharaohs that were pharaohs at that particular time. Okay. So again, why is that significant? Take a look at these pharaohs. Look at their phenotype. Okay. These are, biblically speaking, they would be considered Hamitic. We know Egypt or Mitzrayim or Kemet. We know that the ancient Israelites were black people. Okay. They were black. We know, again, you shouldn't, if you know Ham, he's a progenitor of the black races, not Negroes, though. Okay. So not all black people are Hamitic. You have, like the Israelites are a black Semitic people. So now you have Pharaoh Thutmose II and Pharaoh Amenhotep, Thutmose III, who ran from 1501 to 1447, and Amenhotep II ran from 1447 to 1420. Okay, so now look at their phenotype. Why is this important? Well, because you have three instances of Israelites being mistaken for Egyptians. Okay, so now I'm gonna read this here. This is Exodus 2 and 15. That's where I'll start. It says, "Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses, but Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock." This is when Moses was exiled, okay, into Midian. He spent 40 years in Egypt. He was exiled in Midian for 40 years. And this is when he first goes into Midian. Notice what it says, verse 17. "And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. When they came to Reuel, their father, he said, 'How is it that ye are come so soon today?' Notice what his daughter said. And they said, 'An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock.'" So what do the Egyptians look like? They look like this. Okay, so what does that mean? The Hebrews or the Israelites, the true Israelites, the ancient Israelites, they look like Egyptians. Okay, and not just in dress, because again, like I said, you see other examples of this. You see this with Joseph, who was mistaken by his own brothers as an Egyptian because it had so the unlikeliness of him rising to the position and that seat of authority, second only to Pharaoh, and many years had passed. They didn't even recognize their own brother. So if they didn't recognize their own brother, he could not have looked like the people do today that call themselves Israelis, right? So Moses, he was also mistaken as for an Egyptian. That means more than likely you can infer that phenotype, not just dress, but phenotype, they looked similar. They did not look like this. See, you see the difference here and here. And I'll show you other examples of ancient Egyptians and how they looked. So now, ironically, Moshe looked probably closer to one of these two rappers and a basketball player, who also ironically were more than likely could be Israelites more so. I'm talking about lineage more so than the people that call themselves Israelites today, and they're trying to convert to Judaism or have converted to Judaism, whereas the Bible doesn't give you Judaism. That's something else. And we can talk about that at another time. But that's the irony. You have some potential originals trying to be some converts. That's irony. Color this, you don't have to read. I'm gonna read this out of Exodus, the 4th chapter. Yeah, you books turn to Exodus, the 4th chapter. I read this in Exodus, the 4th chapter. He does a he does something. It's a miracle to show the Lord's power through what he's doing. And it says, notice what it says here. Exodus, the 4th chapter, and uh verse 6. Because he gave him a rod and it turned into a snake, but he also did this. Verse 6. And the Lord said furthermore unto him, put now thy hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again and plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. Now, what kind of miracle would that be if he looked like this? So it's leprous, it's white as snow. I mean, their hand is already white. And again, this is not a hatred thing, it's just a reality. It's just reality. So now that it wouldn't be much of a miracle. They'd be like, okay, Moses, you got a little pale there. What's going on? You got some powder in your cloak, or what's going on? Or did he look more like this and his hand became leprous? That's a miracle. You understand? That's a miracle. Furthermore, let's look at the appearance of the ancient Israelites. This is what they looked like. So it's important to know this because the ancient Israelites and the Hebrews, as far as at least in color, looked the same. All right. So how did the ancient Israelites look? Well, this is ancient Egyptians look. Well, this is this Sphinx. And this, if you see it on the right, obviously the lips and the nose seem to have been defaced or something happened to them. On the left there, the sketch, that if you notice that nose and those lips, you can tell from the phenotype, from the characteristics, that's not a European. That's not what we would consider the Arab today, from like the Ottomans or something, empire. That was sketched by Vivant Denon, and he etched the Sphinx in 1789. He accompanied Napoleon on his Egyptian campaign in 1789. I'm sorry, of 1798. Okay, I think I got it, 1789. So he said, I'm gonna read this here. What he said. He said, though its proportions are colossal, the outline is pure and graceful. The expression of the head is mild, gracious, and tranquil. The character is African, but the mouth and lips, of which are thick, has a softness and delicacy of execution truly admirable. It seems real life and flesh. That was before it got whatever happened to it. They say Napoleon shot the nose off. Whatever happened to it, I cannot say. But we know that it's African. This is Khufu. Okay. So when you look at the phenotype, you can tell that these are not the people that are in the land today. They don't look like anything like these people. And again, I want to point this out that the Egyptians today are not the ancient Egyptians either. Okay. They occupy that land. It's occupied mainly by a particular faction of Arabs, but you have black Arabs as well. That's a whole nother thing. But it said this is a painted relief of light infantry. Okay. Notice the phenotype. This is Ramses II. This is Queen Tai, wife of the Egyptian pharaoh Amenhotep III. This is Mentuhotep II. This is Meritaten, daughter of Akhenaten. If you notice, the color has been some happened to it as far as it being that you see it being what seems to be white, but the color has been removed maybe over time. But you can see here what the color on the edges of the bust, what the color actually looked like. Pharaoh Dozier, Amenemhet III, Huni, Tutankhamun, the Ka, Tutankhamun. So you see this this didn't look like the people who are in the land today. All right. So now you can, if I showed you those two rappers and a ball player, they couldn't be mistaken. Perhaps if they changed their garments and wore the garments of Egyptians of the time, they could be mistaken for an Egyptian. They cut their beards. They could be mistaken as Egyptians. Now, furthermore, Historians say that the ancient Egyptians were black. This is Herodotus, the so-called father of history. He was a Greek. And notice what he says concerning the color of the Egyptians. Now he's saying this, and but that's not his primary focus. His primary focus is the Nile. And so he says, indeed, this way has no more truth in it than the rest, alleging, as it does, that the Nile flows from melting snow, whereas it flows out of Libya through the midst of the Ethiopians, and so comes out into Egypt. How then should it flow from snow when it flows from the hottest parts of those which are cooler? And indeed, most of the facts are such as to convince a man, one at least capable of reasoning about such matters, that it is not at all likely that it flows from snow. The first and greatest evidence is afforded by the winds, which blow from these regions, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Libya. The second is that the land is rainless always and without frost, whereas after snow has fallen, rain must necessarily come with 5 days, so that it is snowed in those parts, rain would fall there. And the third evidence is supported by the people dwelling there. Notice how he's going to describe them. It says Egyptians, Ethiopians, and Libya, because that's the places he mentioned, who are black color by reason of the burning heat. So what's he saying about the ancient Egyptians? That they're black. He wasn't trying to prove that. He just said how they looked. Now, because of racism, which is in history is a modern phenomenon. Racism is about 500 years old, roughly. People would say, well, the Egyptians can't be black. Why would they say that? Because that was one of the most advanced, if not the most advanced civilization in the history of man. You look at the pyramids, you look at the things that they were doing. I mean, everything from cataract surgery to, just sacred geometry. Greek philosophy comes from Egypt. They did so much, but now, but now, so racism says they can't be black, but ancient historians said that they are. Okay. You look at the the statues and busts that I showed and the reliefs. It showed you a black people. Okay, you look at the Sphinx, right? This is Sheikh Anta Diop, one of the greatest scholars of the modern era, had 5 PhDs, has a university named after him. His pivotal work, The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality, he says Herodotus may be mistaken when he reports the customs of a people, when he reasons more or less cleverly to explain a phenomenon incomprehensible in his day. But one must grant that he was at least capable of recognizing the skin color of the inhabitants of countries he has visited. And he had to do that, he had to say that because people were saying, since Herodotus said that the Egyptians were black, they said Herodotus didn't know what he was talking about. The Egyptians can't be black. Well, no, they were black, and he didn't need one of those PhDs. It's hard to get one PhD. He had 5, but he didn't need any of them to say what he said because it's common sense. How old do you have to be? How smart do you have to be to know what a color of a person is? All right. This is an Egyptologist, Gaston Maspero. He said, by the almost unanimous testimony of ancient historians, they, referring to Egyptians, belong to an African race which settled first in Ethiopia on the Middle Nile. Following the course of the river, they gradually reached the sea. See, it's only, recently that because of racism that people are saying, oh, these Egyptians can't be black. But again, the ancient Egyptians were black, and so were the Hebrews. So were the Israelites. They look the same as far as color. This is Tacitus, a historian, Roman historian. He said a few authorities hold that in the reign of Isis, the surplus population of Egypt was evacuated to neighboring lands under the leadership of Hieronymus and Judas. Many assure us that the Jews are descended from those Ethiopians who were driven by fear and hatred to immigrate from their home country when Cepheus was king. There are some who say that a motley collection of landless Assyrians occupied a part of Egypt and then built cities of their own, inhabiting the land of the Hebrews and the nearer parts of Syria. Notice what it said again. Many assure us that the Jews were descended from those Ethiopians. Now, Ethiopia when Greeks these people of that land, they say burnt face, right? That's what Ethiopia means. So like they it's never said that the Ethiopians were not black, right? So now if you think about it, thinking about the Israelites or the Jews here, he said were from that they come from Ethiopians. See that that's just something to consider when you think about color. So this is another reason another reason why you know that the people did not go back into the land in 1948 because they're simply not the people. Because the people of this book are black people that have been scattered into slavery all over the world. And the question is, who are these people in the land today? Because they are not the people. And with that, brothers and sisters, so it's my prayer that you were edified.